The story is told by a girl. It's so nice to have a place where you can escape from the city and take a break from its hustle and bustle. In this case, my husband and I were lucky because we inherited a summer house in the countryside from his parents, where we went every spring and summer to take care of the garden and the house, and just to have a rest and enjoy harmony with nature. The village was located about 50 kilometers from the city where we lived. Mostly elderly people lived there, as all the young people left for the city in search of a better life. We went there in our own car. And so, having planned our first trip after the winter, we took a week's vacation to go there. But at the last minute, my husband was called away on an urgent business trip, so I had to go alone. Have a good trip, Oksana. Call me when you get to the village. Yes, Artem, thank you, and have a good trip. Before I left, I said goodbye to my husband and ran to the bus station as my husband had taken the car. The buses to our village went rare, only 2 runs a day, the first of which left at 6 a.m. So I had to get up very early. Arriving at the bus station half asleep, I boarded the bus and set off. Since it was an hour and a half to go, I decided to take a little nap on the way. There were 5 other people on the bus, but they were all from neighboring settlements, as I didn't see anyone from our village. So, I woke up when the bus was approaching the bus stop in the center of our village. Getting off the bus, I thanked the driver and headed in the direction of our house. It took about 20 minutes to walk. The first thing I noticed on the way to it was that there was no one on the street, not a single person. Yes, not many people lived in our village, but it was not late. Usually, at this time of day, someone is doing something on the farm, going somewhere on business, but here the village seems to have died out. I wonder where everyone is, I said to myself and continued walking. As I reached the house, I noticed that several neighbors from my street were watching me from the windows, but when they saw me, they immediately closed the curtains and hid. What is going on here? These seem to be familiar people. I don't understand anything. They couldn't have forgotten what I looked like in a few months. Well, they are old people. Anything can happen, I reassured myself, and opening the old creaky gate, I walked into my yard. There was still snow on the ground, not completely melted. And I noticed some strange, unlike human footprints scattered all over the yard. They resembled the prints of huge paws of some animal. Looking at them, I was already quite alarmed. My intuition told me that something bad was happening here. I took out my phone and called Artem. But he didn't answer. He must be in a meeting, I thought, and put the phone back in my purse. Okay, I need to calm down. Maybe it was some big stray dog that wandered into my yard. There are plenty of them around here. I smiled to myself and took out my key and went to open the front door to the house. Everything seemed to be in order inside. So, after putting away all the things and food I had brought with me, I started cleaning the house, because while we were away, there was a lot of dust on the furniture and other items. I also had to heat the fireplace, as it was still quite chilly outside, and prepare dinner. Artem was supposed to arrive in 2 days when he will finish his work. I didn't even notice that it was getting dark outside and that evening was creeping up on me. So after dinner, I went to my room to watch a movie I had downloaded to my laptop. Before that, I called my husband again. After a few rings, he answered my call. Hi, honey. Sorry I didn't answer the first time. I was very busy at work. How are you? How did you get there? Hi, I understood. I got here without incident. I cleaned the house. Now I'm resting. You know, something worried me a little. What is it? What happened? Artem interrupted me in an excited voice. When I arrived in the village, on the way home I did not meet a single living soul on the street, and when I was approaching the house, I noticed that several neighbors were sneakingly watching me from their windows, and when I looked in their direction, they immediately hid, as if they had seen something terrible. And in our yard there are many footprints in the snow, some big paws, I don't even know what kind of animal. In short, something strange is happening here, and it scares me a little bit.
Oh, come on, Oksana. You're exaggerating. The locals rarely see new people here. You know, only the old people are left, and rarely anyone visits them. The village is slowly dying out. Maybe they thought that you were a new neighbor and looked at you. And the footprints, it must be a neighbor's dog. Uncle Stepan, the one who lives across the street, has a big dog. Maybe he got loose and is running around the yards. Don't worry about it. Close the door at night. Everything will be fine. I'll be there soon.
Thank you. You've calmed me down. Come soon. I said goodbye to my husband and, sitting comfortably on the couch, turned on my laptop and started to watch the movie. It was about 12 a.m. when I was half asleep and I was distracted by a noise outside the window, as if something big had run past the wall of the house. It was as if the dream was lifted. I immediately jumped up from the couch and ran to the window and carefully peered in. But in the darkness of the night, I could not see anything. What was that? I asked myself. Maybe it was really Uncle Stepan's dog. I would have to visit him tomorrow. And by the way, I should tell Artem to fix the lock on the gate. Not daring to go outside, I lay down on the couch again and continued watching. I fell asleep on the couch with the laptop until I woke up again in the middle of the night to some commotion from the yard. It seemed like someone was running around and throwing everything in sight. I took a mop in one hand and a flashlight in the other and ran to the front door. Having opened it halfway, I first shone the flashlight in the direction where the noise was coming from to make sure it was a dog and to chase it out of the yard. What I saw there shocked me and stiffened my whole body with fear. Under the beam of the flashlight in the corner of the yard, I saw some kind of creepy, unknown creature. With sharp claws on its unnaturally long limbs that was literally tearing open the old wooden door so that chips flew off in different directions. To the summer kitchen located on the opposite side of the yard from the house. The creature was thin, with pale bluish skin that covered its bones and moved on four limbs. When it noticed the light, it turned its creepy muzzle sharply in my direction and growled menacingly. Long, sharp fangs protruded from its jaw, and its large yellow eyes filled me with indescribable fear. The creature's roar brought me to my senses, and, fortunately, I managed to close the door in time before the creature crashed into it with all its might. The creature was just frantic, scratching at the door, pounding on it with its limbs, and howling so hard that it gave me goosebumps. In a panic, I ran to the ladder that led to the attic, climbed up it, threw it to the floor, and closed the hatch behind me. A short moment later, I heard the front door collapse and the monster ran inside the house. Real chaos began. It was smashing and scattering everything in the house. I hid in the far corner of the attic and shook with fear like a little girl. The creature must have smelled me, but it couldn't reach me. The phone was left in the room, so I had no way to call someone and ask for help. So sitting quietly in the attic, I fell asleep and woke up when it was already daylight outside. I could not hear any sounds from downstairs. So after sitting there for about 10 minutes, I carefully opened the attic hatch and, throwing an old shoe down, listened to see if the creature would run toward me. But nothing happened. I decided to get down from the attic. Since I had thrown the ladder to the floor, I had to jump. It was about 3 meters to the floor. So at first, I hung onto the hatch frame in my hands and then jumped down. I immediately put the ladder back in place so that if the creature was near, I could escape to the attic again. When I entered the room, I just froze in a stupor. All the things were scattered, torn and beaten. The furniture was broken and covered with scratches from the sharp claws of the creature. There were huge paw prints on the floor. I walked through all the rooms, but made sure she was gone. Finding a phone in the middle of the mess, I called Artem and told him about everything that had happened to me that night, and he told me to get out of there immediately. I gathered my baggage, propped up the house with the door that the creature had knocked out, and left the house. But on the way, I decided to go to my neighbor, Uncle Stepan, and ask him what kind of creature was walking around the village at night. For about 5 minutes I knocked on his door until he first looked through a small window near the door, then opened it and asked in a nervous tone,
"What do you want? Who are you?"
"I'm Oksana, your neighbor. At night, some creature was running around my yard, and then it broke into the house and smashed everything. Do you know something about this creature? Can you tell me?" I asked him. After standing silently outside the door for 10 seconds, he opened it and invited me inside. Then he immediately locked the door behind me.
"Come into the kitchen. I'll tell you everything,"
Uncle Stepan wheezed in a half-hearted voice. We sat down at the table and he began his story.
"This evil appeared in our village at the beginning of winter. Nobody knows what it is or where it came from, but it caused a lot of trouble. At first, it began to destroy people's livestock. In the morning, only the bones were found. And when it ran out of livestock, it started hunting people. At the beginning of the street, Ivanovich and his wife were killed and eaten when they were returning home late at night about 3 weeks ago. They found only the remains, uneaten, 300 meters away from the house. And the other day it came to Mykitivna's house at night, and she suffered the same fate. People live in fear. And you know what I'm going to tell you. Today you will be next."
Uncle Stepan said this last phrase in a demonic, scary voice, and then hit me sharply and hard in the face with his hand so that I fell to the floor. In an instant, he jumped out of his chair and began to transform into the same damn monster that almost killed me last night. His arms and legs were breaking out in the opposite direction and lengthening in size. His face was turning into a beastly maw, from which needle-like teeth were growing like mushrooms. And his eyes began to turn yellow. This picture took my breath away, and indescribable fear shackled my body so that I could not even move a finger. But a sudden surge of adrenaline brought me to my senses. I had to somehow escape from this monster before it was completely transformed. I quickly got to my feet and, accelerating, pushed the creature out of the kitchen aisle while it was completing its transformation and wanted to run outside. But I forgot that old man had locked the door and taken the key with him. So I turned around and ran inside the house. The only way out was through the windows. When I ran into one of the rooms, I noticed that for some reason they were all covered with dark curtains, which made the house dark. Quickly running to one of the windows, I tore the curtain off the window and was ready to jump out, when at the same moment a creature ran into the room. Caught in the sunlight coming through the window, the creature screamed furiously and turned around and ran out of the room, still howling in pain. Daylight was obviously harming it and saved my life. That's why all the windows were curtained. I took the chance to break the window and jumped out into the street and ran away. I was still shaking because of what I had just experienced a few minutes earlier. I quickly walked to the bus stop and sat there waiting for the bus. I didn't know if I should call the police and tell them everything. I doubted they would believe me. But on the other hand, the creature was still alive, and it would continue to kill. So I did call and told them that it was just a crazy old man who killed everyone, not some kind of monster. That way there would be more chances that they would come here. I got on the bus and left this godforsaken village. We hadn't been there in months. And yesterday Artem decided to go, to check what was happening there, even though I kept telling him not to. I have not been able to reach him for several hours. I really hope it's just a problem with the connection.